What just happened in the Brazilian league is mathematically impossible. Well, not literally of course, but it's so rare that we can say without hesitation that it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Welcome to Vantin's Football Corner. But before we continue, I got something for you. Tenho algo pra vocês, galera. I put some links in my description that will also help you to live your best football life, be it on the pitch or on the road. Alguns links na minha descrição para você também viver a tua melhor vida de futebol. It's the 37th match day of the Brasileirao 2025 and the bottom of the table looks like this. Two teams already relegated, there's nothing to decide anymore, but above that, a very, very dramatic decision was on its way. You see, there were 5 teams that still had the chance of being relegated, with Vitória and Internacional sitting on a relegation spot and Ceará, Fortaleza and Santos being above the line. And to really grasp the proportions of what then happened on matchday 38, let's take a closer look at this constellation on matchday 37. And to do that, we have a really cool tool in Brazil, which is this website here, which gives probabilities of football for the Brazilian league. It's created by real mathematicians from a real maths institute at the University of Minas Gerais in Belo Horizonte. So those probabilities are actually calculated by real professionals. And throughout the season, the mathematicians are calculating probabilities, which team is gonna land where in the end, like who's gonna be champion, who's gonna qualify for international football, and also who's gonna get relegated. And those are the numbers they attributed to the 5 teams that were still in danger of getting relegated. You see, Internacional and Vitória have the highest chance of getting relegated, logically because they're on a relegation spot and depend on other results in order to stay in the league. Above that, Ceará and Fortaleza still have a considerable chance of getting relegated, but less than 50%, because with the right results they could stay in the league out of their own force. And then there's Santos with a really slim chance of getting relegated, but quasi 98% safe. And spoiler alert, they really stayed in the league. They were not part of the madness which happened on matchday 38, so I'm gonna leave their probability out of my calculations for the sake of simplicity. Why do all of those numbers matter? Well, because this is the table at matchday 37 and this is the table at matchday 38. You see, the 2 teams that were on the relegation spots, Inter and Vitória, actually managed to jump above the relegation spots and stayed in the league, whereas Fortaleza and Ceará were relegated. I'm not gonna tell you how exactly this came about on the match day itself, which was dramatically enough in itself. I've done a stream about that, you can find the link in the info box if you wanna see minute by minute how the match day enrolled and relive all this craziness, but for this video it will actually be a little bit too long. And so I set up this calculation which multiplies Internacional staying in the league, Vitória staying in the league, Ceará getting relegated and Fortaleza getting relegated. And I ended up with this final number, which rounded up equals only 0.57%. That's less than 1%. So just for comparison, I also did the calculation for the probability of Inter and Vitória both getting relegated, and I ended up with a number of around 26%, which just goes to show how much more unlikely it was that both teams would jump above the relegation line and not stay below it. So what does that mean in actual numbers? Well, I was thinking, how many times would you have to play this match day in this constellation in order for it to happen that Inter and Vitória both stay in the league? And well, 0.57% means that on average you'd have to play this match day 175 times in order to get this result once. And then I was like, well, this was a decisive match day, the last match day of the season, of which there's only one per year. So how many years would it actually take in the Brazilian league until something on this scale would happen the next time? And well, you can do the maths yourself and just add up the years. It would be the year 2200. Isso é completamente louco. And so yeah, that's how I came to the conclusion that what we saw in Brazil on the last match day just recently is probably a once-in-a-lifetime event. Or is it? Because you might have the feeling that while the maths gives us those numbers, football miracles actually happen every time. They rather seem to be the rule than the exception in football. How can that be? Before I leave you, don't forget to check out the links in my description so that you can live the same stuff I live in my videos as well and give your football adventures a real boost. Não esquece de olhar os links na minha descrição, assim você pode viver as mesmas coisas que eu vivo nos meus vídeos também. Valeu, tamo junto. Well, the answer is easy, because football doesn't follow mathematical rules. Because the players, the fans, like everyone involved in football are humans. With a psychology, with fears, with motivations. And it's this that clashes on the field. and not some numbers. And that's what makes football so beautiful in the end. That's why we love this sport, for the unforeseeable, for those moments we could never have dreamed of, that finally come true, that makes us totally lose our minds. It's just this feeling of overcoming the maths and overcoming what is awaitable that makes football so flippin' beautiful, and that's why we love it. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel to take a deep dive into the South American way of living this culture. And see you next time. Ciao, ciao.